next video, and this video is gonna be me telling you guys a story that still to this day perplexes me and pisses me off at the same time, because I still have no idea what happened to this place, where these guys went. I have no idea, and I've been wanting to do this video for quite a while. So let's get started. To go back a little bit to give you guys just a little bit of background before I get to the actual story, or the actual main part of the story, I should say. So back in like maybe 2003, 2004, somewhere in there, yeah, about 11 years ago, 12 years ago even for that matter. I was still living at home. I graduated high school in 2003. So I was still working at McDonald's at the time, which is horrible, but I was still working at McDonald's at the time. And you know, the store, the fast food restaurant owner would always bring the newspaper in like every morning pretty much when he came in. And there was one morning where he brought it in when I was there, and it had this really crazy ad in it. It was bright green, and it said Crazy Games, or Game Crazy in the top corner. And on the front of the ad, it had this giant picture of a Model 1 Sega Genesis for like $20 or $30 or something like that. And I sat there in the break room looking at it going, are you serious? I didn't even think you could even still buy anything like that anymore, because, you know, at that point the Genesis and the NES and Super NES and all the older retro game systems they've been obsolete for a long time by then. And I'm like, I need to go check this place out. That's crazy that there's a store that actually sells these old video games and stuff. Like, I had no clue that anybody would even care about that. So my friend Wokus and I, we went to the Game Crazy in Bolingbrook, which isn't there anymore, unfortunately, but when it was there, we went to the one in Bolingbrook, which is like literally like 5 minutes down the street from his parents' house. So we went in there, and I think it was like maybe 6 or 7 at night, so it was about to close and there really wasn't anybody in there. But we went in there, and I walked up to the counter and I asked the guy, I'm like, I saw this ad at work that you guys are selling Model 1 Sega Genesis. Do you guys have any left? He's like, yes, I do. Just give me a second and I'll bring it out. And I'm like, holy crap, this is the first time that I will see an actual Sega Genesis in like over 10 years or something like that. Probably more. 10, yeah, even more than that. So he brings out the Model 1 Genesis, and it's not in the greatest shape. It's not beat up by any means, but it's got a fruit by the foot sticker on the front of it. It's got scuff marks, and it looked kind of dirty and crap, like it was sitting in somebody's attic for like the last 10, 15 years or whatever. I'm like, you know what, I don't really care. I'll buy it, I'll clean it up, I'll make it look as brand new as possible. So that day I bought the Genesis, and I bought Shining in the Darkness, the first Sonic, the first Golden Axe, and I believe I bought maybe the first Streets of Rage or something like that, or maybe Dynamite Duke. I don't remember. It was at least the first 3 games I said. And but he didn't give me the AV cables. He just gave me the RF connector, which, you know, back then that's how they were connected anyway. So at first I didn't think it worked. I got home, I put it on the big analog TV that my parents had at the time. It was all staticky and all that. It wasn't working. I eventually got it to work, and I was in nostalgia heaven. I couldn't believe that I had just bought a Sega Genesis, because it's like I said, at the time I didn't think anybody cared about that stuff anymore, it blew my mind. After that day, I immediately just got into collecting retro games. I bought an NES off one of my friends I went to high school with, and he gave me a crap load of games and his controllers and all that. And those were really the only two systems I collected for, so I had at least 90 to maybe 100 plus games for both the Genesis and the NES after a few years, because I went apeshit and I just bought tons of games and stuff for both systems. So now it's about, after all that time, after every, whatever, because I went to school for fire science, and I did a bunch of crap during that time while I was collecting retro games and stuff. And it was about 2007, 2008, where my brother Kevin came up here from Champaign, and he brought his PS3, and at the time I didn't really have any interest in a PS3 because I was playing my Genesis, my NES, my PS1, and my PS2, and that was really all I cared about for video game wise at the time. And I told him, I wasn't really interested in getting a next-gen console. I didn't really like the 360 very much. I wasn't into the Wii. I really hadn't seen anything for the PS3 yet, so he brought it, and he played Assassin's Creed for about 5-10 minutes, and I was blown away. I was freaking blown away. The graphics and everything at the time when the PS3 and the 360 and all that came out, they were fantastic. I'm like, I have to get a PS3. There's no way that I can pass this up. This just looks amazing. So I got all my I didn't sell any of my Genesis or NES stuff, but I got all my PS1 and PS2 stuff pretty much that same night. And I went to the GameStop that's by my parents' house, which at that time they still were buying. They weren't buying PS1, but they were buying PS2 games still at the time. So they rejected all my PS1 stuff, but they bought all my PS2 stuff, and I got the money, and they told me, hey, if you want to sell your PS1 stuff to, like a secondhand store or whatever, go to this place called Gamerz Garage. And they said it was in Westmont. That was the name of the town. It was in Westmont, which from here is like maybe, I want to say 20 minutes, half an hour or something like that. So I'm like, all right, fine. I know where I can go to before I go to this Gamerz Garage place to sell some of my PS1 stuff. So I went to the disc replay that I still go to this day to get horror movies and stuff like that. So I sold the majority of my stuff there, but there were some PS1 games left over that they couldn't buy or they didn't want to buy or something like that. And they told me the same thing that same day. They're like, if you want to sell the rest of these PS1 games, try this place in Westmont called Gamerz Garage. That was twice in one day that somebody from a video game store or whatever told me to go to this place. I'm like, all right, fine. I guess I really need to go to this place. So, and this was before smartphones really took off, and most phones didn't really have the internet or anything, so I couldn't really look up the address on the spot or whatever. So I went home, and I had to, I printed out directions for MapQuest, which is just hilarious to think about now. But so I took the directions, and right after that, I followed the directions exactly to this place in Westmont called Gamerz Garage, and I walked up to the door. And right in the window, there's a Model 1 Genesis and Sega CD hooked up, just sitting there in the window. Just sitting there, and the box was next to it. And they had a TurboGrafx 16 in the window. And they had this giant blue neon Sega sign in the window. And they had like an NES and all this other crazy stuff in the window. I'm like, alright, this is going to be awesome, because if this stuff is sitting in the window, I can't wait to see what's inside. So I walk in, and this place is insane. Right when you walk in, you look to your left, and there's at least 4 or 5 shelves on the wall just completely full of Dreamcast games. Complete in the case with the manuals. Just crap loads of random Dreamcast games. Any game I was like, are you serious? But what's even more nuts is they literally, like, when you walked around the store after I noticed the Dreamcast games, the entire wall after those shelves of Dreamcast games, from where those shelves ended all the way up to the counter, was completely full of Genesis, Master System, and 32X games, loose and complete in-box games. Just completely covered the wall all the way up. And I was like, holy shit, this place is fucking awesome. This is my new... I'm only coming here for games. I'm never going to GameStop. I'm never going to Disc Replay. I'm just coming to this place. And that wasn't even the whole thing. On the other side, on the wall on the other side of the store, it was all Nintendo crap all the way across. NES, N64, GameCube, Game Boy, anything that has to do with Nintendo was all on that wall all the way across on the other side. And then in the middle, there's all these random bins of 3DO games and CDI games and Sega CD games and Jaguar games and every freaking console that you could possibly fucking think of was in this store. And it blew my mind. I've never been in a retro game store like that ever. They even had a Super Nintendo kiosk in there that was fully functional, and it had a Super Nintendo in there that was playing Super Star Wars on there. Oh man, just thinking about that store just blows my mind. Okay, so after my first trip, after I crapped my pants the first time, I sold the games, I got the money. You know, I looked around for a little bit, but that time I didn't buy anything. And, you know what, maybe a week or two passed and I got paid again, and I'm like, alright, I'm going to go back to this Gamerz Garage place and I'm going to, you know, maybe buy some games or something from them or whatever and check out the prices, because at that time I didn't really look at the prices when I went there the first time. I was just still in shock at the store itself. It was just freaking nuts. So I went in there a second time. I bought I don't know how many Genesis games. I bought a ton of Genesis games, and I got a bunch of NES stuff and all that. And after going there a few times, I started to, the two guys that owned it, you know, started to recognize me and all that. And eventually that Model 1 Genesis I got from Game Crazy, it started to not work anymore. And when that happened, the last time that I went in there, I asked them, do you guys do console refurbishments? And they said, yes, they do. They know where to get the parts, and they know, you know, how to fix them and clean them on the inside and everything. And I thought that was awesome. And I was like, so how much would it be to, you know, refurbish my Genesis, because it's I can tell it's, you know, it's starting to be on the fringe and it's not working 100% like it should be. And they told me to refurbish the Genesis would be, I think, probably maybe about $15-$20 to fix it. I'm like, that's awesome. I will bring it next time I come in here. So next time I brought it, and what's weird to think about though is that they told me to bring. Now I don't know why I didn't think of this when I brought it, but for some reason they told me to bring a controller and just 2 random games just to make sure it works, and, you know, all the cables and stuff. But at the time I didn't think of it. I just wanted to get it fixed. I'm like, alright, fine. If that's, you know, what you guys do to make sure that it works or whatever, I'll just do that. But the thing of it is that they have hundreds of Genesis games right there on the wall. Why can't they just grab one and just slap it in there and just see if it works? I mean, why do I have to bring my own? Anyway, so that'll come up later. So I bring the Genesis, and they're like, alright, it'll be $20, I think it was. It'll be about a week, maybe a week and a half, and we'll call you when it's ready. I'm like, alright. So about a week and a half goes by, and they call me, and they say that my Genesis is good. I'm like, alright. So I went over there and got it, and it looked brand new. I mean, they did an awesome job. The they cleaned the shit out of it, and it worked immaculately when I brought it home. It was awesome. You know, I got my games and controller back and all that stuff, obviously, and all the cords and everything, but it worked beautifully when I got it home. So now here's where the story, here's where it starts to piss me off and get kind of weird. The same thing started happening to my NES, you know, the whole thing where you press the power button and the red light flashes, and on the screen, like, it either has a blue screen or it flashes a bunch of random pixels or whatever, and it just doesn't really work properly anymore. And the NES I bought from my friend that I went to high school with earlier in the story, that one started to not work either. I'm like, alright, well, since these guys did such an awesome job fixing my Genesis, why don't I just go in there and tell them that my NES isn't working, or I'll bring my NES in a few games, and I'll tell them that I want them to refurbish this as well, you know, get it back in working order so I can, you know, keep enjoying my NES. So, and this was like maybe, this was like October, November, yeah, maybe it might have even been early mid-November, like getting towards Thanksgiving time, like around in 2008, when my NES started to go out. So I did the same thing. I brought the NES, I brought the cords, I brought a controller, and this right here is just where it starts to get really suspicious and weird and shit. So the games that I bring them to test it out after they fix it was the original Ninja Gaiden, the original Castlevania, and the first Contra. Those are the three games I gave them, because for whatever reason they wanted more than one game to test it, I guess, just for safety's sake, I guess, or something. And they told me the same thing about a week and a half. You know, we'll call you and let you know that your NES, you know, that we've refurbished your NES and it's in good working order. I'm like, alright, you know, you guys did such an awesome job with the Genesis, you know, I'll be expecting a call in about a week and a half, just like the Genesis. So about a week and a half goes by, no phone call. I'm like, alright, maybe it's taking a little bit longer, it is close to Thanksgiving, you know, it is freaking snowing horribly outside and everything's covered in ice. Maybe it's going to take a little bit more time to get the parts that they need in the mail or whatever they got to do. Another week and a half goes by, and I'm like, okay, so Thanksgiving's over and it's not quite Christmas yet. There's gotta be, they have to have, you know, the stuff to fix it. Another week and a half goes by, and I start to get really suspicious, and it's getting close to Christmas time, and my birthday's December 3rd, so it was probably already past my birthday already. I start getting really suspicious. I'm like, alright, what's going on here? I know it's like dead of winter and it's blistering cold outside and everything is completely covered in ice and snow, but I'm gonna drive over there to see what's up. I wanna see what's going on with my NES. So I get in my car, and it's probably about maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon, but it's like I said, it's dead winter. You can't really drive or see very well because everything's just pure snow and ice. So I'm driving, and I'm getting, you know, all anxious and all that, and I keep thinking about, you know, like, what happened to my NES? Like, did these guys just forget to call because of the holidays, or what? You know, I just, all these, like, ideas start popping up in my head. And here's where everything gets perplexing. This is the climax of the story, okay? This is where everything gets perplexing and very confusing and just made me insanely pissed off, okay? I was furious with this shit. I get to the strip mall that Gamerz Garage was in, and it's gone. The store is completely fucking gone. The little area that the store was in is completely 100% wiped out. It's empty. There is nothing there. And there's this big white sign in the window that says for lease with a, like a real estate phone number or whatever on it. But there was a huge white sign in the window that said for lease. And I was the only one sitting in the parking lot, and my jaw hit the floor of my car. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Are you serious? Like, what happened? Like, just a month ago, these guys were in massive business. And there was people going in there left and right selling their consoles and buying games, and what happened? Like, what the fuck happened, man? These guys just vanished into thin air like they didn't even exist. Like, I was furious. Like, I didn't get any of my NES stuff back because they just disappeared. Like, I went home and I went on Google and I looked for like at least half an hour to an hour, like just trying to find like a website or something for Gamerz Garage, and I didn't find shit. There's even to this day, I still look it up once in a while, and there's absolutely nothing online about Gamerz Garage. There is nothing. There is I can't find an address, a phone number, what the two guys, I actually never even learned what the two guys' names were that owned it when I was going there all that time. Like, because I would just go in there and buy the games, and I would chat with them about, video games and stuff for a brief moment, and then I would just, just leave. I never really took the time to get to know the guys' names or anything, but I still to this day, I don't know what happened. I have no idea. They just fucking vanished. And after that, I was so pissed off. There was two reasons why I did this, but I sold all my Genesis stuff. I sold all the NES games because I didn't have any NES to play them on anymore. And I used that money and just saved it up for when me and my wife moved down to Champaign, but I still to this day have no idea. I don't know. Some of my friends theorize that maybe that they were con artists and that they were con artists and they were like doing some kind of sales or trafficking, like stealing stuff online or off eBay, or I don't know. It's just the story even to this day just blows my mind and perplexes me, and I just don't get it. I have no idea what happened to these guys. I don't know. I felt like I needed to do a video on this story because I've been wanting to do it for a while, because it's just so weird. I don't understand. But if anything like this has ever happened to you or somebody you know, where not even video game related, just anything, just like if like a video store or like an electronics store or whatever, just anything like this, like if any of you guys have a story like this, just leave a comment down below, because I would love to hear it, because it's just, it blows my mind even to this day after all this time. So I wanted to tell you guys this story, but thank you guys for watching. I am the American Panzerfaust. I hope your mind is just as blown as mine after all these years. So anyways, guys, keep it heavy.